But now on to Dwars of Vlaanderen women's race. We don't have to cover it technically on our rules because it's not a World Tour race, but if there's a live stream we watch it, we will cover it. So again,
let's talk about it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, about that
the
live stream, Benji. Yeah. So
I'll talk about it. Okay.
You go first.
The issue at hand is that so obviously when someone like Flanders Classics hosts a race, they want to license the race to the host broadcaster gets to record it, and then the race is licensed to people to broadcast it. We know that from Alar here, who had the same thing for his highlight videos that he makes now. And the issue here is that in Flanders, usually Sportza, the national television channel, they usually look into that for the Flemish races. And they did not license themselves, or they did not buy the license to broadcast the Dwars of Vlaanderen women's race. So they also didn't seem to care too much about covering it on their website, because they wrote an article of 1 or 2 lines on it instead of the usual every second coverage throughout the whole event if they've got the license towards the race. So it seems that they only care about races where they've got the license from, which sucks a bit when it comes to women's cycling.
I would just add and maybe temper that comment a little bit in that I went and I tried to buy all the women's Flanders Classics highlights rights along with the men's ones. I said, give them all to me and we'll pay I want all of them, and I couldn't. They weren't available with all of the men's ones. So perhaps because it was being 4G streamed for a little bit, it's not, it just wasn't for sale to sports that didn't meet their broadcast standards yet or something. But yeah, I wouldn't, maybe the article for sure, agree, Benji. Like they can watch it on TV or on Proximus or whatever it was, like everybody else, and still write an article about it. But read the broadcast, maybe it wasn't 100% their call. But sorry, go on.
So the worst part about it is that eventually you've got a situation where GCN is broadcasting this internationally. So they've got the broadcasting rights. Yeah, Eurosport as well. Eurosport not in the USA. I heard someone say on
Flow Bikes in USA, Canada, Australia.
Okay, so a lot of people outside of Belgium were broadcasting it internationally. That's the point there, and they all did that with proper commentary and such, except for Flow Bikes. In Canada, apparently also no commentary. And in Belgium, Proximus, the host broadcaster, decided to broadcast it on fucking Vimeo, of all places, and they did so without any commentary. And
pretty good footage.
I really don't get it. Like when it comes to the host broadcaster doing this, to have someone be able to watch it, I'm kind of fine with it. But if you got a situation like Flow Bikes, then I don't like if they don't make commentary for it, because then you're basically buying the rights to secure the rights and prevent someone else to get the license to those rights in that region, and you don't put the effort in to make the product good quality for the viewers, and then you're just valuing just the exclusivity over the quality of the viewership. Is that too harsh? Or do you think you agree?
Well, my bigger issue is with Flanders Classics, Benji, and I went into bat pretty publicly for them when they were getting smoked on Twitter on the equal pay debate after Omloop, explaining, they're actually doing a good job for live broadcasting. So I need to back away from that a little bit, because this is not the first time women's races that they own have been broadcast with no commentary. And to be honest, it's a fucking joke. Like, how can you have a race with no commentary? And they're talking about the path to have the women's races be commercially sustainable by 2023 or 2024. How is that going to happen if you're not ensuring that the broadcasters you're giving the rights to don't even bother to pay a commentator to commentate on the race? And it's not the first time it's happened. So that's on Flanders Classics, in my view, to think, well, okay, we're saying we're doing all these good things, investing 6 figures euro into the live broadcasting. That's great. I agree. That's not just lip service, but come on, you got to at least say to if the women's races go with the men's race in the bundle, and the broadcaster buys it, you got to have a clause in there that says you need to do an equally good job production-wise for the women's feed that you're sent. That's a condition of purchase of the men's rights. So, I mean, whether it's Flanders or whoever's sold them direct to everyone else, GCN Eurosport did a good job. As usual with their commentary team for the women's, but that's something that's got to be fixed ASAP, because I had people talking to me. They're like, I'm watching, I paid for this service and I don't know what's going on. So yeah, that's a big shame. I think some room for improvement there, especially given how vocal Van den Spiegel was on Twitter a month or so ago about the good job they're doing. But we hate talking about that sort of stuff. We like talking about the actual race. 122 Ks from Waregem to Waregem, however you say it. Similar sort of climbs as well in the middle of this race. They've got the Kreuzberg, Berg ten Hout, where Van Baal attacked in the men's, Tiekenberg, Holstraat, and then pretty flat 19K run into the finish. Here we have the Trek strong team of Diagnan, Longoborghini, Winder, Van Dijk, Brand, Cordon, Rigaud. Some sprinters in Viebs, Roy, Grace Brown as well. So yeah, pretty strong start list, to be honest. Drops look whole. And it was a weird race, again, from Trek Segafredo. I have to be honest. I mean, they did a pretty good job early, I would say. But yeah, I just don't understand why they chose to ride for Ellen Van Dijk. That's my biggest problem with what they did today. But yeah, there was a breakaway with Cordon Rigaud, who is on Trek, Thomas, Jackson, Van der Velde, De Jong on that Ingoal team, I think, and Rube. They got to the Nochteberg with a 24-second lead, but the race opened up when Annemiek van Vleuten and Kasia Nuvia Doma attacked on the Nochteberg, mainly Annemiek van Vleuten, just like when Elisa Longoborghini attacked on the last climb in Ken Favelhem, and only Nuvia Doma could follow her. Big gap. And they started working together. The break was caught, and it was all up to Trek Segafredo to chase. They chased with Elisa Longoborghini and Cordon Rigaud and Ruth Winder, which was kind of surprising to me. They had Diagnan and Van Dijk sit in. Brand had been dropped. There was also other sprinters in that group, like Sarah Roy, Liana Lippert. So Roy had Grace Brown, who could have worked. Liv. They had multiple riders in the group and weren't too quick at going forward. Same with DSM, had Mackay for Lippert as well, just like they did in Hen-Favelhem. So it was pretty obvious that Trek were riding for Van Dijk. Roy punctures, which then meant that Bike Exchange weren't going to chase. So that was a big problem. But the gap, it was just like with Van Baal. It held at 20 seconds. The kilometers were ticking down every 5Ks that goes past, where you haven't brought back Nuvia Doma and Annemiek van Vleuten, and we've got 25Ks left or so. Every K that goes past, you're less likely to bring them back. Liv and DSM weren't contributing, and then the death knell, I think, was Van Dijk beginning one of 6 attacks trying to bridge across. That was born out of desperation. Why do you think Trek rode for Van Dijk today, Benji? Do you think it's a matter of giving her an opportunity in a 1-1 and so she can work for Longoborghini on the weekend?
I don't know. I feel like Longoborghini has been so powerful over the last 2-3 weeks now that it surprised me, because it kind of looked like they were riding this race like, for example, the Nolkudeberg wasn't there anymore and stuff like that. And I think that the likes of an Elisa Longoborghini is, to me, a better rider when it comes to the bergs than Van Dijk is, and Van Dijk is better on the on the rough flat cobbles because she's got more of that flat engine than Lamborghini has, in my opinion. And I think that on this race, the first one is what you are looking for in the majority of the race, and perhaps towards the end you can go towards using Van Dijk a bit more. But I felt like they were using Lamborghini extremely early on, and I just don't know. I can't tell you if it's the good plan or not. But in the end, I felt like with this kind of race, knowing that the last portion of the race is not the hardest section, like the whole Straat Nokerenberg, and then that Hertighem-Straat cobble section in the last 10-ish kilometers, that isn't going to make the race very selective. So if you are, for example, with a good 20 kilometers left with a group relatively significant following those two riders, then I don't know if using Van Dijk is a good strategy, because I feel like there's just much better sprinters in that group. And I think that we eventually noticed that in this race.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's my main concern, that the selectiveness of the race made it less likely that Van Dijk was the good choice compared to Lamborghini, because Van Dijk would need to have it from an attack. And I think that group had enough people, if Nieuwedoma and if Van Vleuten was caught, that they were probably going to counter anything she does from that point onwards. So, yeah, I don't know. It was I can't tell if it was a terrible strategy, but I also can't tell you if it was the good choice.
My view straight away was, I mean, you don't have to have been watching women's cycling for very long to know that if Annemiek van Vleuten goes up the road, especially if she's with another beast who's willing to work with her, aka Kasia Niewiadoma, then you need to react quickly or that race is going to be gone. I thought the only chance of them bringing it back with that Nokerenberg coming up in the last 10Ks was to slap Van Dijk on the front and pull hard, and for Mackay, Grace Brown to help. That would have given them a chance, but they didn't. 5Ks to go, 17-second gap. Van Dijk had been dropped on that climb later. I think they still had Diagna in the group. I was like, damn, are Trek really going to not get a top 10 result in either Dwars door Vlaanderen or Gent-Wevelgem? That's crazy. They did manage one, but it was pretty clear with about 6Ks to go that Niewiadoma and Annemiek van Vleuten were going to win, and it was who was the better sprinter. And I guess we've seen Van Vleuten's strategy in the past in sprints is to light it up really early, use her endurance, and especially out of a corner when the speed is lower to create a bit of a gap. And yeah, that's the way she tries to win sprints. And that's exactly what she did today. There wasn't too much finessing. They both just looked pretty tired going to that run-in. And Annemiek van Vleuten lit it up. She had Niewiadoma on her wheel and she couldn't come round her. Both of them were gassed in the last 25. They both just sat down in the saddle and couldn't pedal. So, yeah, great attack from Van Vleuten. Her first win for her new team, Movistar. She seemed pretty G'd up. She was like properly fired up at the finish, which is great to see. Niewiadoma, she looked in very good form in the last two races, Gent-Wevelgem and today. So that's good to see as well. Two Canyon SRAM riders on the podium. Alexis Ryan, the American, winning the bunch sprint for third. So, yeah, good day for Canyon SRAM. Guazzini for Valcar fourth. Alison Jackson 5th, Grace Brown 6th, Mackay 7th, Bujak 8th, Van Dijk 9th, and Stina Borgli 10th. Sarah Giganti.
I've got a question for you.
I'll say the 11th, Benji. Let me say the 11th. Giganti, the young Australian, for Tipco 11th.
Yeah.
Even though we normally just do top 10, but big shout out to her too. Sorry, go on.
Okay, I'm going to drop a question for you. I think that it's an interesting one. I'm sorry that I'm going to force you.
It's going to be a super chat donation to do that, mate.
Yeah, no, not happening. But when it comes to the start lists, we know that SD-Works wasn't here, and it made for a different race because there was no real control in that second group to try and chase those two back at a full effort. And you think that would have been a very different race with SD-Works here? And I think the answer is going to be yes.
It's hard to say. It depends which SD Works comes. if it's the one at Genfavelhem where the leaders are an off-form Jolien Dora who might not have made it over the climbs today, and then they've just got Majerus and Amy Peters, though that version of SD Works didn't seem too keen to contribute unless they were in the reduced group. But if they have Anna van der Breggen and Dora in the group, and then Majerus and Amy Peters, yeah, different story. They put those two on the front and they ride full. So, but then again, if Anna van der Breggen was here, does she get dropped on the Nochterberg climb? Anyway, probably not. She'd be doing the dropping.
Like Vanderpool, yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I can't wait to see Tour of Flanders this weekend. Elisa Longa-Borghini, in my view, it used to be, well, not used to be, like last year, the early attack, TT away, Van der Breggen and Van Vleuten, they were the specialists on the climbs. And with that engine, Elisa Longa-Borghini, she's looking up there. So it'll be interesting if she could join them as well, kind of like a Alaphilippe Van der Poel, Wout van Aert situation. The race may not play out that linearly, but that could happen for sure. I think Trek, yeah, they got to think about the best way to play it, whether attacking with ELB early is the way to go, or whether they should use their really strong team. Like, how can they use Van Dijk and the American national champ in late game to put ELB in a good position? But we'll have our Tour of Flanders preview tomorrow. Got a special guest, which is sorting out for that as well. We'll have the men and women's race preview. We can't wait. Starts and ends in Benji's house. It's a national public holiday for him on Monday. And, maybe we'll see him standing outside his home if he's allowed to do that. Can you just, while we're here, Benji, what's been happening this week with Flanders? Has it been a muted lead up or hype as normal?
So, like in previous years, every single time the Tour de France was on, they had this show called Vive Velo, in which they had two guests every evening to talk about the race and so forth. Yeah, you're right. But then again, the Tour de France is also in France because that's where it came from. But that's a top-notch show, and they've always got interesting talks. And I really enjoy watching that. And I think this week they brought it up as every single day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Yes, I can count to 5 days. Every evening they've got a similar talk show. But I found it most interesting last week when it was a similar talk show that they do. I think I don't know how regular it is, but we've got this talk show as well, Extra Time Cycling, it's called, and we've got the dude that commentates women's races on it, and his name is like Ruben van Gucht, and I found it so shameful that there were so many like top-notch cycling guests, active men's cycling, a commentator that usually does the men's races, a commentator from the radio from like 30 years ago, and the dude that is hosting it is that guy that usually does the commentating for the women's race, and he just says like, there was also the women's Driedaagse today, and this house, blah, 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 and it was really sad to see that everybody on the table was so interestingly involved in trying to get the conversation to the next topic as fast as possible because they didn't know a single clue about women's cycling, and I think that's an issue.
It is. Well, I don't watch Belgian TV yet, but that's why we just do the podcast. I know we try and just talk about the race, but sometimes you just have to talk about the landscape, the broadcast, media landscape around it as well. We can't just ignore what's going on, and we should point out, especially as we have the freedom to do so, because we can say what we like, really. That's all I have to say on it.